Hello everyone, my name is Eduardo Fimeister and I'm going to presenting one of the courses of Regulate that is related to trustworthy AI and risk management. This is the second component of two courses that are going to be presented. The first one is related to risk management and the other is related to risk assessment. This is the second component and it's going to focus just everything on risk management. So we are going to have, given the connection, we are going to have first similar introductions, but we are going to go deeper in everything related to the different approaches that exist for risk management and some tools that have already been implemented in, at least in a case study in an European Commission project, that how can be managed the AI set in a trustworthy AI manner, securing that all the risks are minimized. So the first thing that we have to be aware that artificial intelligence has been currently used in mostly all the domains. For example, healthcare, banking, manufacturing sector, and is well aware that the interaction is increased over time. As these interactions start to increase, different governments tend to be aware and also be concerned the negative impact that they can have not only as a tool on the different domains, but also the impact that they can have in society. The negative way of seeing artificial intelligence in the past has been driven by two perspectives or ways seeing the world as a dystopia version. The first one is related that the artificial intelligence is going to replace humans in the workplace, but this is up to this stage far from reality because humans and machines, specifically artificial intelligence, are different capabilities. For example, we know that machines are very good in repetitive tasks, while humans are very good to be adaptable to different modifications of the environment and the tasks. And therefore, right now, there's a huge movement towards the idea that we have to interact with the humans, of course, in a human-centric way. The other dystopia way of seeing everything is that given the capacities of artificial intelligence, they are going to dominate the humankind, and this is a journalistic perspective. For example, we have seen movies like Terminator that are far from what we have right now, but there's some concern from the singularity point that is concerned when the point of the machines are going to go over the intellects of humans. So this consideration of negative way of seeing artificial intelligence give born to the idea of we have to trust in an AI, how we can trust them. When we talk about trust, we have to consider that the truster is made itself possibly being harmed by the other agents that are interacting with. Of course, these agents can be humans or can be, in our case, different machines. When we talk about, for example, human-human interactions, we're well aware that when we trust someone, we are giving a full confidence on the other person and their actions are going to not produce any harm to us. But when we think about a machine, on AI, artificial intelligence component, the interaction fields are not clear, and it's not clear also at the same time if these decisions are made directly by the artificial intelligence or are made by an algorithm that is behind. So therefore, it has to be considered a full perspective of everything that is related to trust and, importantly, to make an AI set considerably trustworthy. So when we have or we see what is required to be a component to be trusted, we normally, when we see a machine, for example, a roller coaster, we tend to think that it has to be robust. That means that has to be robust not only in a technical manner, but also it has to be robust in a societal way. That means that in terms of technical, it's going to be a performance over time, it's going to be constant, but in terms of societal one, is that given the different modifications that can exist in the society, the output of the mechanism or the mechanical component, it will be stay relatively constant. Now, when we talk about artificial intelligence, when we compare it to other type of machines, for example, television of the roller coaster case that I was mentioning, the agent as an artificial intelligence can perform their own decision predictions and learn from different data. And therefore, it's very important the ethical considerations because since it has the capability to produce predictions, these predictions have to be following certain trends if they are going to be used by humankind. In other ways, it has to follow the domain that study human behavior, that is the ethical components. So now, we understand that in order to have a trustful AI component, we need to be lawful, we need to be ethical, and we have to be robust. The AI for People in 2018 defined 5 principles that have to be fulfilled by the AI components in order to being considered trustful. These different principles are non-maleficence, that means that the AI outputs or performance are not going to produce negative impact on humans and society. The beneficence, that means that the artificial intelligence will increase or rise the state of their users. The autonomy point of view is that it's not going to control or define people's goals and wishes. And then we have also the justice component that should act in a unbiased way. And finally, with explainability, that is a big topic in the scientific community because there's different algorithms that can be used to secure transparency of the AI element, but explainability, it has a broader consideration because it has other components to deem AI element explainable. So the European Commission formed a group, the high-level expert group on artificial intelligence during the 2018 to 2019. They used these principles, but not all of them, used 4 of these, eliminated the beneficence consideration, and it developed the trustworthy AI requirements. Over here in the screen, you are seeing the different trustworthy AI requirements that has been covered in a previous course. In this course, we are not going to go deep into this requirement, so it's expected that those that are hearing this course understand each one of these requirements and the content that needs to be fulfilling of them. The requirements are human agency and oversight, technical robustness and safety, privacy, data governance, transparency, diversity, non-discrimination and fairness, societal environmental well-being, and accountability. Okay? Now, when we see that the European Commission have changed or after the trustworthy AI requirement have published different definitions in order to improve the applicability or development of AI set. In 2018, for example, 2019, there was a version that was defined the trustworthy requirements, but in 2020 was delivered the AI white paper on artificial intelligence that gave an insight or a better perspective of the risks that could involve in artificial intelligence asset and component. Finally, in the AI Act in the 2021 that was released in the 21st of April was defined or classified how the artificial intelligence can be clustered in different risk levels, okay? We have, depending of course of where the artificial intelligence component is classified, more attention is supposed to be put on that artificial intelligence, and therefore has to be put more attention on each one of the trustworthy AI requirements. Importantly, that doesn't mean that the AI component has to be putting attentions to all of them. The other thing to consider, and when we have this classification, the classification is dependent on the functionalities of the artificial intelligence, but also on the domains of implementation. When we see in the perspective of the ethical layer, as you see it in the bottom of the slide, we have these ethical principles, that non-maleficence, beneficence, autonomy, just in explainability, and with them was constructed the trustworthy requirements. And it's important to consider again that these trustworthy requirements have to be considered for each one of the risks that that could be the AI being classified, okay, but not all necessary to be fulfilled. Now that we talk about risks, of course, that means that we can use different approaches that already exist for risk management, depending on the sector. For example, the manufacturing sectors are using different standards for developing their technical assets. And normally, when we manage risks or we deal with risks, there's one component that are assessments that can follow different frameworks or standards. But at deeper layer, we have the management approach that are well known again in the specific domain of how they can be used, and they follow also different frameworks and standards. In a previous course, we talked about the TAI tool that could be considered as an assessment framework that help to bring awareness of the trustworthy conditions of the AI assets. There's other approaches that are, for example, the value-based, how we can incorporate values within the technical components that are under development or use. It's important to know that values are not necessarily the same as the trustworthy requirement, because, for example, on a company, it could be important, has a value, the consideration of wellness, of enrichment of the whole enterprise. Now, when we talk about risks, there are different risk classifications. We have hazard risk, we have control risk, we have opportunity or speculative risk. The last one is more related to banking because it can have positive or negative outcomes. The control risks are related more in the way that the system is controlled and how to avoid the modification or going outside of the expected conditions of the asset. So it could be sometimes related to the noise effects on the system. Finally, we have the hazard risks that are recognized because they have only negative impacts. Importantly, since these hazards are also given a tolerance value, that means that when we are going to be managing AI assets under hazard considerations, we have to keep track of them by certain metrics or KPI that is going to give us a measure of how well and how trustworthy is the asset under development, deployment, use, or the commission. That is the whole life cycle, okay? And of course, these metrics can be related to functionalities or specific assets, okay? The impact of the hazard risk can, of course, as we mentioned before, are mainly negative and consider, for the example, the ones that you're seeing in the screen, of course, can be more. It can have disrupting normal operation, security and safety, increased cost, and poor publicity. And all of them has to be considered when we talk about the different cluster or classifications of the AI assets. Now, how we're going to be dealing with this, there's already different frameworks that already exist that can consider the fathers of other risk management. For example, we have the ISO 31000 that kind of like a general scene is over there in the screen, and we have another that is the RAS approach. All of them can, of course, be incorporated in different specific standards and approaches, and depending on the domain that they implemented, can have subtle differentiations, okay? Now, what we propose is when we worked for an European Commission project that is called Assistant, is that we merge these risks or management approaches, for example, the ISO 31000, with everything that so far have been developed or defined for the trustworthy requirements. That means that we have the requirement, we link them to the risk classifications level, and by a proper management, we have a framework on how to manage that risk. We have also metrics that is going to be helpful for keeping track, and we have a management tool that can be used by different users to keep a constant evaluation of the process, because most of the risk management process is a continual evaluation stage. So what is going to be the content of the general course? It's going to be first, of course, an introduction toward AI risk management, something similar that we have done over here, but a little bit more extended. Then we are going to have a broader conversation about the ISO 31000 and the RASP approach. Then we're going to continue with the trustworthy AI process risk management. That is this framework that I was mentioning. That is basically, we're going to call it as TAI PRM. And finally, a tool that has been developed for the users involved in this project and is open for public use. So thank you very much, and hope you enjoy the courses.